All right, and with that, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I see we have a lot of attendees here. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much. You are here at Blended Learning in the elementary classroom. This webinar is hosted by WHRO Public Media. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, we are owned by 21 different school districts in Virginia, and we are called upon to create webinars and all sorts of other really wonderful resources for teachers in our area. So you can always check out our website, whro.org, and you can go to whro.org/webinars to see what we've done before and things we have coming up and things like that. So this is me. My name is Janie Everett, and I'm the Educational Technology Manager at WHRO Public Media. And basically that means that I put together professional development. Sometimes I put together sessions like tonight where we have some other expert speakers coming in to join us. Sometimes I present myself. Um, in the future, if you ever have some sort of technology topic that you or your staff would feel more comfortable if you were trained on, you can reach out to me at any time and request professional development. I can come to your school. We can do something digital like we are tonight. So there's my email, and you've probably been getting emails from me already. It's janie.everett@whro.org. Before coming to WHRO, I myself was an elementary school teacher, and I was also a technology specialist at Virginia Beach City Public Schools. So I have a lot of experience with technology in the elementary classroom. It's what I love to do. I love helping other teachers use it with their curriculum so that we can reach as many students as possible. So,
Jenny, let me interrupt you for just a moment and just make an addition to that. Because we're owned by the 21 school divisions in the Hampton Roads region, anytime you reach out to us for services, those services are free.
Yes, good point. Always free, just like tonight's webinar is free. Reach out to us at any time. We have a really great education team at WHRO, and one of us will be able to help you out with whatever it is that you need. So tonight we actually have two presenters that are not me, but other presenters. And they are Katie Lopez and Kimberly Wisniewski. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about themselves. Katie, go ahead.
As Jenny just said, I am Katie Lopez. I'm a third grade teacher at Pine Springs Preparatory Academy in Holly Springs, North Carolina. This is, I think, starting to run together, 17th year in education, in teaching. I started out in third grade, I moved to second grade, and this year I am back in third grade. So I'm excited to be here and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today. Hopefully you'll learn something new.
And I am Kimberly Wisniewski. Most people just call me Kim because they can't pronounce my last name. But I am a first grade teacher also at Pine Springs Preparatory Academy in Holly Springs, North Carolina. This is my 10th year as a full-time teacher. I taught for 10 years prior to that as a full-time substitute. I started in third grade, went to fourth grade, went to first grade, and then kind of hung out there, and that's where I am now. And I've had the privilege of working with Katie for the last 3 years and kind of passing my kids up to her from first grade to second grade. So I've enjoyed working with her, and I kind of missed her now that she's in third grade.
Thank you. And then you'll also see and hear a little bit tonight from Elmer, who you heard a little bit from already. So Elmer, even though I don't have your name up there, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm the least important person in the meeting tonight. I'm the Vice President of Education Services at WHRO. So that's it.
Thank you. All right, so we are just about to get started. We're so happy to have our presenters with us. They have a ton of experience with blended learning in the classroom in a variety of different grade levels. And these two have come really highly recommended to us. So I'm so excited to hear what they have for us. But really quick, before we get started with that, we always get a lot of questions about certificates. So I wanted to let all of our attendees know that sometime by the end of this week, I will send you an email. It will come from janie.everett@whro.org, and it will have a certificate for attending tonight. It will just state that you were in this 1 hour webinar where you learned about blended learning. Um, Also, I will include a link in there for another webinar that we're doing next week. It's going to be a little bit of a follow-up to this webinar, but it's going to focus a bit more on some specific tools that our presenters tonight are going to mention. Also, it will include some more information about another webinar we have coming up, also about blended learning, but for secondary teachers. So if you know any middle or high school teachers, go ahead and let them know that we have another one coming up. And also, there will be a link for a survey so that you can let us know how we did tonight and what types of webinars you would like to see from us in the future. So that being said, I'm going to go, oh, one more thing, sorry. We are going to leave a little bit of time at the end of this for questions, maybe about 10 minutes, give or take. So a couple of questions were sent in to us already, and we're going to make sure we answer those first. But then after that, if you want to type any questions into the chat area, I'll keep an eye on those and we can ask those to Katie and Kimberly afterwards. Okay, so Katie, whenever you're ready, I'll stop sharing my screen and you can go ahead.
All right. Okay. All right, let me get everything readjusted. I saw a video online last night that said every teacher in the United States right now that's using online meetings has to say, I'm going to share my screen now. So I'm going to do my bit and say, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so blended learning, again, third grade teacher, been teaching for quite a while. I actually started blended learning last year before we went home for COVID, and then used that and kind of have made things work this year. So I wanted to just quickly give you the resources that I use on a daily basis. Has been which is last year's
Did we lose Katie?
I was just going to say.
Oh, yeah, it
looks like that.
Let's go ahead and give Katie maybe a minute here to get back in, and then maybe if she's still having some troubles, we can move on to you, Kimberly, if that's okay.
Sure,
and we'll give her some time to get back in. So let's give her about a minute here, see if she can get back with us, and then if not, we'll go ahead and move on.
Okay.
Well, that was fun. Yay.
Hi, we can see you again and hear you.
Yeah, like close out. See, this is one of those we're going to talk about actually. So
That's like a real life day at school.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
never
Katie, when you
know
started
what's going to happen.
sharing the
Okay.
tools that you were using, we were getting a lot of audio lag.
Okay. All right. Let me share again. Hopefully it will do better this time. I'll apologize that I know what happened. Okay, let's try this again. Hopefully you are able to hear me better now.
So far,
Okay.
we can.
All right. So far. Okay. Perfect. All right. So Google Classroom is our LMS high school is using. Another resource that we purchased a subscription through, and this was kind of a game changer for us. And one that I used before we got out for COVID is Kami. It allows us to annotate PDFs. Pretty much any file that you put in there I can convert to PDFs so that students can write on it using their computers and turn in their work digitally. We also use GoGuardian to monitor our students while they're working, and that's how I communicate with my students that are virtual at home. The next one that I have is Screencastify. Screencastify is the resource that I use to pre-record any videos. Pear Deck, if you're not familiar with that, allows you to make your Google Slides active and let students interact with them on a live basis if you'd like, or a self-paced format. Definitely, we use all of the Google apps at our school. All right, so I did a Donors Choose project and got funded for our grade level to be able to use Spelling City. So a lot of we use that pretty much every day. Padlet, I use a lot for collaboration with students so that even if they're at school or if they're at home, they are able to see and hear from other students. Khan Academy is a great free resource that we use pretty frequently. Jamboard, of course, another Google app that works great for collaboration with students. My kids love to play Kahoot. And we also have a school subscription to IXL, although I know that there is some free access to those. Those are like my go-to resources, the ones that I use daily and weekly. That I don't think I could do this without. So check out some of the free ones if you can. Okay, I wanted to briefly tell you about our current schedule, just so you kind of have an understanding of what our school looks like. Right now, we are modified due to COVID. So Monday through Thursday, we have 2 sessions. I have an AM and a PM session. In the morning from 8 to 11, I have 9 students in person. Then we are frantically cleaning and eating lunch. And our second group of kids comes in the afternoon. They're from 12:30 to 3:30. I have 4 students that are in person in the afternoon, and I have 11 students that are completely virtual. And I pulled those 2 groups together. And then on Friday, virtual Fridays, our whole school is virtual on those days. Those are dedicated days this year for staffings and IEP meetings. Virtual small groups are done on Fridays. I do a lot of student where if a kid is struggling, our software, GoGuardian or what you might use. We do a lot of staff development on those days, and we do a lot of team planning and teacher planning, along with vertical planning as well. All right, so the first point that I wanted to touch on was planning. When we came into the school year, we knew it was going to look a lot different than in the past. And we really worked as a school to come together and decide which programs we wanted to use, so that things across grade levels were consistent. We made sure that each grade level had a strong tech team lead to kind of facilitate that technology side of things, as well as leading the planning sessions. So one of the first things that we did over the summer with my team was we sat down and we had a very honest conversation about how we wanted to work together to plan, and what things each person's really good at. I love teaching reading. We went into that meeting thinking, okay, what am I good at? What do I enjoy the most? And we definitely take a team approach to planning. We use a shared template. We actually have a Google Slides presentation that we use. So I help plan math. Another teacher plans part of our reading. We definitely divide and conquer. We definitely have a team approach where everyone has a part to play. And if we did not do that, it would not be as effective, because you don't have the time that you need usually. So this way we focus on certain things. We depend on each other as a team. Next thing was synchronous or asynchronous. And that was one of the questions that, a lot of us have had this year and even last year at the end of the year. Do I teach live? What do I give the students to practice on their own at home? And one of the things that I keep kind of in my mind with synchronous and asynchronous, if I'm introducing something, that's going to be synchronous. If I'm guiding them through the process of practicing those skills, that's going to be synchronous. And once I feel like they're to the point where they can do some of these things on their own, those are the activities that I may or assign that are asynchronous. So we definitely take a model account when we're doing planning. So the I do, the we do, and then you do is definitely important with the blended learning model. We definitely have to think about adapting to our students' needs. I have a diverse group this year. I actually looped with my class from last year. When I moved from second to third grade, which gave me a little bit of an advantage because I do know my students very well. And I have to do with my plans and for my students to make things work for them. So here's an example. I have a student that has an IEP. He has some visual needs and he needed some more actual paper pencil instead of doing things on the computer. We have to accommodate and make sure that his needs are met. So his each day looks a lot different than some of my other students. So we do take the approach, but each of us have to adapt things to meet the needs of our students. The other thing with our because we're doing things 2 times with the 2 different groups, we spend a lot of time reflecting on things that have gone well, especially in the morning and before we get to the afternoon group, which I know that would not be the case for everyone. But even still, there's a lot of discussion that we have with the teachers, other teachers on my team, to say, hey, that went well, or that didn't go well. What could we teach from here? So definitely time reflecting on the process and what's worked well. Okay, the next important point is clear expectations. So each week I post for our grade level a weekly independent work agenda. Our work at home or a daycare, wherever it is that they have during the day this year. And we post this in advance. Usually I get it on Fridays or virtual Fridays for the next week. I can just a copy to show you. Hopefully it will load. So all of our 3rd grade students have access to this and their parents do as well. We set it up in a calendar format, just another piece of communication for parents. But then we also have everything that they're responsible for when they're not with us for their synchronous learning. All of that information is here. And of course, depending on our students, that might change, their agenda might change a little bit. But for the most part, this is the expectation. So from week one, day one, this is what we used. We told the kids, every week, this is where you're going to go. Making sure parents know what's going on as well, especially when you have face-to-face, some virtual, some working independently while others are not. It's important. We have in my classroom, of course, mine are much more independent than Kim's kids are, and she'll tell you a little bit more about hers. I do what I call a student lesson plan for their classwork. I kind of do a faux flipped classroom. So a lot of the synchronous time, I'll introduce things, and then I give them some pre-recorded things, and then they're working, and I'm conferencing with them, and they have a list of things to do when they're at school or even during their online meeting. So I did link that in as well. Each student, depending on their needs, will get kind of a different, what I call lesson plan. I know in other places these have been used and they're called pathways, but my students do very well with lesson plan. So they have one of these every day, and they can kind of choose that they want to complete things in. It gives them a little more say in how their day goes. And all resources are linked into this document, and then it's assigned through Google Classroom. And then of course I have different ones depending on student needs. So their day, they know when they come in what our day is going to look like, what's expected of them, and kind of how things are going to go. The other thing that is flexible due dates with our students, especially this year with COVID. Knew going into this that we as teachers were going to have to be flexible and allow students to turn things in at night or on the weekend. That doesn't mean you actually have to let it, but to accept late work, or I had a student today whose power went out and she couldn't join us on our online meeting. So things happen, and you're going to have to be flexible about students turning in work. All right, helpful hints. These are the most important things I felt like were important for you guys to know. This is an actual picture of my desk. This was taken on one of my planning days. You can't see, I actually had 2 computers and I had 3 monitors going on at the same time. When other teachers come into my room, they say my room looks like mission control, and it definitely feels like mission control, especially in the afternoons. If you have access to multiple computers and monitors, definitely utilize them if possible. I usually have my online meeting. We use Zoom, so that's pulled up. I have GoGuardian where I can see the student screen if they're at home. There's a lot of moving pieces during our afternoons, and I need to have all of those things up at the same time. It's good to have a spare computer in case yours crashes, like mine did earlier. Okay, helpful hints. Explicitly teach students how to use technology. So because I looped with my class, I spent time reviewing because we had done and used the pieces last year. But I did have some new students that came into my classroom this year. And if you don't take the time to teach them how to use some of these, it's going to make their lives and yours a lot harder in the end. So definitely, use that time. Take the time that you need to explicitly teach how to use some of the programs. Okay, another thing that our school decided over the summer when we were planning this year was that we were going to have school-wide expectations for students for online meetings. So whatever online meeting format you're going to use, whether it be Google Meet or Teams or Zoom, set some online expectations and review them frequently. So I linked mine in if you were interested. We kind of went with the Bitmoji theme this year. So we review this every couple weeks because it seems like they need reminding pretty frequently. So getting dressed, being on time. Yes, I did have students last year that showed up without shirts on. So that was important for this year. Making sure all the materials are ready, avoiding distractions. For some of our students right now is hard. So I just find them try to find a quiet place if you can. We say no food, but we give our students breaks from the screen and also to eat as need be. Stay in one spot, so no backgrounds, no renaming the screen, which some of them like to do. So just the point of this is just to be sure that you are clear with your students, what you expect of them. Okay, let me go back to this. Okay, the other thing when we are planning third grade and up, the hard limit for anything pre-recorded that we send home is 10. We are only, of course, the shorter the better, but research shows for age 10 minutes would be kind of a hard line. I know Kim talked to you a little bit about what it's like for her younger students, but for me, my pre-recorded videos are longer than 10 minutes. And even sometimes with might pause and say, okay, I want you to do this, and then press play when you're ready and we'll go over the answer. But give them something to do, maybe even in the middle of that 10 minutes is a good idea. All right, so in the afternoons, I do have students in my classroom and I have students that are at home. And after we started in August with this. We've been on the same schedule since August. We've been doing this for quite a while now. One thing I learned very quickly was to have my students, even though they were in the classroom, go ahead and log into my meeting. Just they could see each other, and it allowed them to collaborate with each other a little bit better. So that was something I learned very quickly. I wish someone had told me that before. Okay, another helpful hint, be available to your students and to your parents, especially your because we kind of do a faux flipped classroom. Faux flipped is when the students watch videos and things during class time instead of doing it before class time. So when they're doing those things, when they have questions, they need to be able to contact you. And I also want my students to make sure that they know that if they need me, I'm there as much as I possibly can with, kids at school and then at home. So they will send me, I've taught them how to send me an email. They know how to send me a message hangout. Know how to send me a chat in our online meetings. They know how to, their parents know how to message me in class as well, which is another thing that we utilize quite a bit. So just being available and making sure the students know that you're there for them, even though you're not always going to be there in person. Okay, things will go wrong. That's good. Just like at the beginning of my presentation, things are going to go wrong. And a lot of what happens depends on your attitude. So if you go into it saying, being and preparing the students, say, okay, if we know things are going to go wrong, and teaching them how to deal with those things if they do go wrong. And sometimes even us as adults need reminders. We've got to expect something to go wrong. It's out of our control. It happens. But keeping that positive attitude, especially in front of our students, will help them learn how to cope when things do go wrong. And we have had our fair share of things that have gone wrong this year, for sure. There have been days where the internet was down. We got kicked off Zoom 4 times and we threw in the towel and said, I'm going to send you a lesson, look at it later. Things are going to happen, but keeping that positive attitude will help your students in the long run as well. Learn how to deal with those things when they do go wrong. Okay, considerations, things to think about. One of our big takeaways from the training this summer that we did was you're not using technology just to use technology. The purpose of technology is to enhance what you're doing. So you don't want to create a lesson just to use a specific technology. You want to teach it in the curriculum, but enhance it using technology. Make sure that you're giving students the time during class to practice what they're learning. Sometimes we feel like if we do have students at home that they have to be on their online meeting the whole time. They don't. It's okay to say, all right, we're going to sign off. I want you to practice. I'm going to check in with you. Let me know if you need me. And we do that in a regular classroom anyway. So you've got to remember to do that even if you have students at home. The last thing I put on here is planning, and more planning. I told the group last week, I don't think I've ever spent this much time on planning as I have here and last year. But the more prepared you are and the more planned you are when things happen or things go wrong, you know what to do next, and really taking that time and thinking through things. You can't just jump into this and not you can't fly by the seat of your pants with blended learning. You've got to take the time to really make good plans and think about what's best for your student and how to make it happen. So make sure that you leave yourself time for planning, which I know is sometimes hard. Okay. So that's the end of mine. I put my email in here, so feel free to send me anything that you have. We've been doing this for quite a while now. It seems like it's a lot longer than I think it really is. But a lot of us have done, him and I both have done some of these things before COVID too. So integrating small groups and using technology in our classrooms are things that we're very comfortable with. So if you do have questions, email me anytime. I think Janie said she was going to share the presentations, and I look forward to any questions that you have. I'm going to turn it over, I think.
All right, so let me see. If I can get it to work. Oh, no. You jinxed me, Katie. All right, let me see. Uh-oh. Let me see now. There we go. Okay. So let me open this. Here we go. All right. So as I mentioned to you earlier, I am Kim Wisniewski. I teach first grade at Pine Springs. And as Katie has mentioned, we kind of started this way back in March. And from my perspective, going into it in March, we didn't really know as much as we know now. So a lot of things I did in March and April changed once I started again in August. So just a reminder of having that flexibility in changing your schedule, changing the kids' thinking is important. So many of the resources that I use are very similar to Katie's, just because as a school, we made these decisions. Of course, I also have tweaked some for my students and what is accessible and easier for them to maneuver, just because most of them are 6, sometimes 7, just depending on when their birthday is. So I do have some younger and some older. We do use Google Classroom on a daily basis. We do use most of the Google apps. My kids since August have used Google Forms, Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Hangout. So they're pretty well versed into how to maneuver those things. Another app that we use is also Kami. So my students have the accessibility to write on things that I add into their Google Classroom. They also are able to send it to me. I can grade in there for them and send them their grade back, or I call them, because they are little, I tell them I send them love notes. So they check their emails and to see what kind of love note they got. Some of them I haven't taught them, but some of them have figured out how to answer me. So I get a lot of love notes back. You know, some of them are still, you know, again, getting used to that piece and adapting to their needs. So emailing for some of them would be a little overwhelming. I do use GoGuardian as a tool so I can help them use their screen in case they get stuck, their screen freezes. You know, communication piece. We do use Screencastify. Most of our videos on Screencastify are done because our students are littler, are on our independent day. So most of our pre-recorded videos are done on Fridays, so that they have their own time to stop it, go back and rewatch it. Because at my grade level, I spend all of our Zoom on with them, so they don't log off and log back on. Just because a lot of them have their parents helping them. And so it's a little overwhelming for mom or dad to remember, oh, I got off now, set the timer for 10 minutes and get back on. So once we log on at 12:30, we stay on until our lessons for the day are finished, or our questions are done, or whatever activities we have going on are finished. We do use Kahoot. They love it. You know, they like, at our grade level, we do a lot of multiple choice, and we use shapes instead of words, so they can pick the shape. And then we also use iExcel. And I use iExcel for math and reading. And I do highlight the areas or content specifically that we're working on for them. So as soon as they log in, they see the yellow star and they know that that's something that they're supposed to do for me. We do Raz Kids, which is also, I use it from a reading perspective. So they get to choose books on their own sometimes and read them and do comprehension pieces. I also assign them books. So that gives them a little bit more responsibility and flexibility to make them more accountable and appropriate for their grade level. I also have just started this year, as a matter of fact, using eSparks. And eSparks is another program. This one is free, that they have the ability to do math and reading on. And it fluctuates according to their abilities and questions that they answer correctly or incorrectly. And then it sends me a weekly email about groups that, according to that website, feel like I could put together and work as a small group activity or a lesson. It also does send me daily emails if I choose, and tells me how long, what specific student has been on, what lessons they've done, where their strong suits are, where they needed a little more assistance. So I also use that when I meet with them in small group to just kind of pinpoint smaller things to help them move forward. We do use Spelling City, so they get to play games on there for their spelling words each week. That is an activity twice a week, and then we do test usually once a week. Right now we call them tricky words. So it's just based on vowel, consonant, vowel words. It's based on everyday words that they would see in a book. And then it progresses from there into words that we get from our reader. And then I also do use Pear Deck for an interactive presentation for them where they can move things, they can, put check marks and things like that, just to kind of keep them more involved. So my schedule is a little bit different than Katie's. I do have from 8 to 11, 14 students in person. And then from 12:30 to 3:30, I have 7 students in person, and I have 4 students virtually who I teach at the same time. So my in-person kids hear the same exact thing my virtual kids do. And we kind of tag team and work together to help each other. So on virtual Fridays, very similar to Katie's, we do staff meetings. I do a lot of, because all of our remote learning is on Friday, I do a lot of virtual small groups. So we do small group reading. Sometimes I'll do small group math. Sometimes it's one-on-one conferences. With the students more so, it's like a lesson or a catch-up if they've been absent. I normally schedule conferences also. So I've done that virtually with my class. So I spend a Friday and book my time from 7 in the morning to 7 at night and get to speak to every parent to just kind of touch base with them, since I don't get to really talk to them now, it's the kids. And then I offer them, student help, IEP meetings, we do staff development, we do teacher planning as a team, we do vertical planning for grade levels on Fridays. So some of my helpful hints is, team planning is important. Being consistent across your grade level, I would say is one of the most important, because parents talk, and so trying to, compare notes about how long one person was on Zoom, how long another person was on Zoom, what stories they read, is kind of cumbersome. Teachers get emails all the time. And so I have a grade level of 5 teachers. So each teacher takes on a subject, and that's what we plan for. And we share that template through Google Classroom. So we do post our activities on each other's page. We schedule them. So whatever my class does, the 4 other teachers do. And then vice versa, whatever they plan is what I do. But of course we make adjustments, for our students, depending on needs. So we actually just did for Thanksgiving a turkey activity where I had students making math equations. Some of my students were using 4 dice with numbers. Some of my students were using 2 dice with dots. Some of my students were using a combination of dots and numbers, just to kind of challenge them a little bit and meet their needs so they're confident. We talk about synchronous and asynchronous days and what's important, what we feel we need to work on together, and what we feel that they can do on their own. Consistency in our grading. We choose assignments each week as a team of what we're going to grade from each subject and how many points it's going to be worth. So that if you do have families with multiple siblings or twins, or one teacher doesn't have 5 grades and another teacher has 15 grades. And so, again, it's adapting to those needs. So no matter what the assignment may be, each person gets graded according to their abilities. And then some of the other things we do, like Katie had mentioned, is just adapting to their needs, making sure that whether they're in person or online, you're touching base with what they're showing you, what their ability is, what their concerns are, what they're strong in. And then reflecting on that. How did I help them enough? Do they need a little bit more? Do I need to change something? And again, it may not be just for the student. It may be from your in-person kids to your virtual kids. How can I communicate better? And one of the things I do with my students is every Thursday, I give them a little self-evaluation, which I kind of attached to the side there. And they're simple questions just for them to reflect on. And at this point, they can read those questions themselves and they answer them. And I told them, it's not right, it's not wrong. How do you think you did? And it's simple things like, did I take my time? Did I do my best? Do I finish on time? Is there something I don't understand and I'm not asking? And then when they leave on Thursday, I take those evaluations and it's a thumbs up, thumbs in between and thumbs down. So thumbs up is I had a great week. Everything is done. I feel good. The in between is kind of like, I'm not real sure. I might have a question, but I'm kind of scared to ask. And then a thumbs down is, I really don't understand. And so I use those evaluations on Fridays when I talk with them. And that's kind of where we touch base and say, okay, what kind of questions do you have? What kind of information do you need? What can I help you with? And then we kind of go from there. And so like I tell some of the parents, a lot of them think, oh, grades, and numbers are important. But sometimes their confidence and big picture things down the road, like speaking in front of a group of 180 people, they need to be able to be confident in that. Because at some point in their life, they're going to have to do a presentation. So being confidence and, having that self-control is also at that young age just as important as a paper that comes home with 100 on it. So some of the other flexibility, helpful hints that I think are important is their work. Katie had mentioned, one of her students lost power today and couldn't do anything, letting them know that it's okay. We're gonna fix it. We're gonna figure it out. And if you're having trouble, just let me know, and we can do it together. We can do it later. It's just important that you understand that. Having the flexibility in their attendance. That's another, thing that we've come across is some of the students feel like, oh, I'm in person today, but I woke up late, so I'm going to be virtual later and I'll still be at school, so it's okay. So jumping from, one plan to another plan. And being okay with that. That I think was one of my hardest challenges was I plan for 15 kids, I expect 15 kids. And it doesn't always work out that way. So just having that flexibility if they do choose to stay home. And because they are little, we do frequent wiggle time. We do it in person and I do it with my kids virtually. They, get to skip around their table. They get to, kiss their brain. They get a pat on the back. We do brain breaks. Right now, their favorite dance is the chicken dance. So if you search, my classroom, you'll see lots of videos with them doing the chicken dance. And so, just giving them that opportunity to laugh, to giggle, to have fun. And we stress about making sure the content is there, making sure we get everything done, and it'll be okay, and they'll get it. And then, giving yourself time and planning for specific directions to give them guidance and to manipulate that technology. I spent probably at the beginning of the year at least 2 weeks with my class, just doing little snippets of things on different assignments for them to learn. Okay, and it's very specific. Open your Google Classroom, open the classwork tab at the top in the middle, click on your green circle, click on the blue rectangle. Where now my kids, they're ready before I am. So, I'll say, okay, boys and girls, let's get our day started. But I use the same vocabulary with them every day, which is important. So they know exactly where they need to be and what they need to do. So I can say, open your Google Classroom, click on your classwork tab, find your math topic, click on your green circle, and make sure you open it in Kami so you can write on it. And they're ready and they understand that. But it took that time and the patience to get them there. And sometimes I'll even get, parents are like, wait, slow down. And I try and tell them, it's not for you, it's for your child. Let them do it. They are capable. Sometimes we like to keep them little forever, so making sure your vocabulary is consistent and specific for them. Like Katie had mentioned, we also set expectations for Zoom. I did link mine, but of course my pictures are very similar to Katie's because it was a school-wide presentation and expectation. So, letting them understand that it's not okay to shout over your friend. It's not okay to hit your mute button and talk while someone else is talking. I allow them to chat only with me if they have a question. I created a sign if they need to go to the restroom, so they don't even need to talk to me. They just need to show me that sign. So that, again, it gives them a little bit of responsibility and teaches them respect. And then being available, making sure that you have access to help them. I use GoGuardian all the time so I can see their screens. I know what they need help with when they get stuck. I've also let them try and explain it to me. What do you see on your screen? Because that communication piece is important. They need to be able to ask someone for help. And sometimes when you're little, you get embarrassed to do stuff like that. I also use Class Dojo. So mom and dad who are home with them can send me messages. And, be able to say, hey, we're getting kicked out of Zoom. Can you talk with us later? And I can respond kind of quickly back to them. So, just letting them know that it'll be okay. And together we'll work it out and not answering them. I do, like Katie, have multiple monitors. Of course, I am not NASA, so I don't have 3 or 4 like she does. But I do have at least two monitors, most days 3 monitors going at all times for my Zoom, my Google Classroom, and then the work that I project on my board. So, the kids know this is a teacher table and I don't go there. It's okay. My computer looks like theirs. And then, just that consistency, whatever you present to the kids in person, present to the kids virtually as well. They're part of your classroom too. Even though they're not there and it seems a little strange, be sure to include them. And all of my things in my Google Classroom that I give to them have links. So they know when they see blue words, all they have to do is touch it. It's done by subject. So I can say, look for ELA, look for math. It's done by date. So they know Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I schedule it. So only the work that they need to do that day shows up in their Google Classroom. If there's something that they need to finish, we communicate that. Well, your circle is still green because you didn't finish or you forgot to turn it in. And so we've done it multiple ways also to teach them how to turn it in, and so however, we need to communicate that to them, it's consistent. And there's choices for them. And then making sure that you communicate with them how you want your assignments. So my students know, please don't email me your picture of your homework because I'm not going to look at it. Please don't bring it in your folder the next day because you didn't finish it while you were at school. Okay. I need all of your work turned in on the computer. So they know, when my work needs to be done, I need to do it on the computer. And so most of my students right now, I have 2 students out of all of them who still write their things on paper, and that's okay. But when they take a picture of it and they send it to me, it's in my Google Classroom assignment. So I'm not looking anywhere else for it. And they know that. And so having those expectations for them and starting out at the beginning of the year that way, letting them know, I can't take this because you didn't follow directions. It's okay. And they'll learn. It's just going to take time. Making sure you give them the class time to practice and ask a question, if they don't understand something, if they're not sure about something, if they get behind because they lost focus for a minute there. I teach my kids all the time, if you hear hocus pocus focus, you need to make sure your eyes are on me because something's not right. And then it kind of regroups them and brings them all back together because there's 25 of them and 1 of me. And so I can get all of their attention and help them again at the same time. We do pre-recorded videos for our independent study, again, which is usually Fridays. They do get independent study in the mornings and in the afternoons. So my morning kids that come in person have independent study work in the afternoon. And then my kids that come in the afternoon have independent study work in the morning. But usually it's a follow-up from the day before or something to finish from that afternoon. So it varies just depending on what time frame they're on. We do a 5-minute maximum, just because it's easier for them to stay focused. It does have little pauses in between if they need it, and they can back up and access it again. Just like Katie said, expect things to go wrong, expect things not to work, and it's okay. Explain it to the students, let them know, oh, boys and girls, it's not working today. Oh, I tell them all the time, oh, your computer needs to think a little bit longer. Oh, your computer's still sleepy, so it needs to rest a little bit more. And they're okay with that. They're learning patience. We had one day where we were working in Kami and the whole thing just went blank. So we had nothing, like no lessons in our computer, and the kids just kind of had this, deer in the headlights look. And I said, boys and girls, you know what? It's going to be okay. Let's just do something else. So then we did reading from our book instead of finishing an enrichment activity on the computer. And they went with that. They just flowed with it. So as long as you're okay with it and you're not, having a meltdown, they'll be okay with it, and so, just teaching them that it's okay. Be patient. My kids in my class, their favorite word right now is refresh. I'm like, just press the refresh button, and it'll work. Refresh and it'll work. Like, that's what we say, and so, again, teaching them that consistent vocabulary so that when you do tell them it's okay, hit your refresh, they're okay with it too. And then I give my class little motivators, little things to just kind of keep them going, to let them know that they did a good job, to let them know that, oh, you were really on Zoom for a long time. And so we'll send them stickers in the mail for our virtual kids. My kids the other day were on virtual for 3 hours, which is a long time. And so I sent them Hershey bars in the mail with a little love note, and they were so excited about it, and so again, just remembering that they're 6 and they need that break. They need that motivation. And, just keeping that, again, consistent, giving it to your kids in person and giving it to your kids virtually. And it doesn't have to be anything big. So that is all I have to share. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I did attach my email. So if you have any questions or you want to see pictures of my setup or how things are done, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer.
All right, Katie and Kimberly, thank you both so much. So it is 8 o'clock right now. So if you need to head out, you can go ahead and head out, but we are going to stick around a little bit and answer a couple of your questions. So I am going to stop the recording now. And if you need to leave, that's fine. We do have 2 questions that were sent in beforehand that our presenters are going to answer for us. And then if you have any additional questions, you can type them in the Q&A section and we'll try to get to as many as we can for about 5 or 10 minutes here before we head out for the night. So one of the questions that was asked was, what technology tools are a must for teachers to have to make the teaching experience as seamless as possible?
All right. Katie, you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. Sorry, I think my internet's constantly coming in the house. So hopefully you guys can hear me. My go-tos, you've got to have Google Classroom or Canvas or your school is using. Kami is a must. For us last year, using that at the beginning of last year with my students. So when they went home in spring, they already knew how to use that, which made my life and their lives easier. They were absolute must. GoGuardian, where you and actually see what the students are seeing at home was a big piece for us as well. The top
Katie,
3,
you're cutting
and of course there's a lot more
bit.
that are available.
Yeah, Katie, we're getting a lot of lag on
Okay.
your audio. What you may want to do is cut your camera off and see if that helps, and just use
Okay.
the audio then.
Okay.
It might
I'll
help.
try
I
that.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So my go-to is Google Classroom or whatever LMS your system is using, Kami, so the kids can turn in their work digitally, and GoGuardian, some kind of software that monitors what the students are doing and allows me to interact with them, even if they're at home. Those are my top 3.
Mm-hmm. And I do have to agree with you there, Katie. I did kind of comment and say, a learning management system that you're able to do multiple things on. So the kids are able to, learn all those skills and all those techniques like Google Classroom. My kids have done docs, they've done slides, they've done forms. A program like Kami where you can download things and they're able to use their computer to write on and give it to you instead of having to worry about taking things back and forth and books and tearing papers out and taking pictures. And communication, is huge, being able to talk to them, being available to them. So GoGuardian is a big one, being able to see their screen and help them. Class Dojo is also a big one. I know Katie used a lot of things in March as far as the technology pieces that we talked about tonight, but I did use Class Dojo since March up until the end of the year in June, and was able to get pictures and create portfolios so the kids were able to send me their work on the computer, which is free if that's something that you need to learn how to do or create.
Thank you. Another question was, Is it necessary to have more than one teacher in the classroom to facilitate the teaching for virtual/in-person learners?
Hmm. Are you there, Katie?
Yes. Here. What was the question?
Katie, we're having a hard time hearing you again. If
Okay.
possible, could you type yours into the chat maybe while
Yeah.
while Kimberly answers hers?
Okay.
Sorry.
So I do have a full-time TA in my classroom, and it is wonderful to have her. But one of the challenges too is having that full-time TA when, you know, we've all experienced it, something comes up or someone needs to go home, they kind of pull those extra people. So she's not always there. And so, or she takes the day off. So no, it's not necessary to have an extra person. It's wonderful to have them. And I would always take an extra person for an extra set of hands. And I think any teacher would. But it's doable. You know, if you, again, set those expectations, set those routines for them, and teach them the patience and the flexibility, they'll be able to feed off of your attitude, and they'll get through it, you know. And so being able to do it on your own is absolutely doable and okay.
All right, we have just a couple of questions in the Q&A. There's about 4 of them, so we'll go ahead and answer those before we call it a night. Do you have any students without internet access, and how do you handle that?
I do have one student with no internet. And so with them, what they do is, again, you know, like we talked about, you know, adapting to their needs. They are that one person that does send me their email. So I set up a window of opportunity at night between 8 and 10 p.m. For them to send me pictures of their things. But if it's before 8 or after 10, it's incomplete until the next day. And then, you know, I'll be able to help them or talk to them. And if it's not finished, it's okay, you know, but I need to know that between that window of opportunity. And that the hours are kind of set so that I know Mom wasn't doing it at 2 in the morning and then sending me the email that it was finished. You know, it's making sure that it was completed before the student went to bed, and then Mom had an opportunity to send it to me before she went to bed.